Inikpi, what is this? Arome's voice thundered from the bedroom, disturbing the silence of the morning. His tone was sharp and filled with anger. He was standing by the bed, holding something small in his trembling hand. Inikpi, who had been in the kitchen preparing breakfast, froze when she heard her husband's voice. She had never heard him sound so angry before. She wiped her hands off and hurried out of the kitchen to their bedroom. As she stepped into the room, she saw Arome standing by the bed, but when she saw the object he was holding, a small pack of pills, she stood at a spot, frozen out of shock. The color drained from her face as she realized what he had found. Inikpi, what is this? Do you have any explanation for this? Inikpi's mouth went dumb. She tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. She had kept this secret for so long, never imagining that he would ever find out like this. Now, here it was, exposed in the harsh morning light, and she was totally unprepared for this. Arome's voice grew louder and more desperate. For 5 years, I have been trying, I have been patient, I have been hopeful. And all this time, you have been taking this? He shook the pills in his hands, as if to make the betrayal more tangible. Do you know how much I have wanted a child? How much this means to me? How could you do this? How could you deceive me like this? Inikpi took a step backwards. She tried to explain, to say something that would make him understand, but all she could manage was, Arome, I am sorry. Arome looked at her unbelievably. Sorry? Sorry doesn't fix this. You have been lying to me for years. Do you have any idea what this has done to me, to us? Inikpi opened her mouth to speak again, but instead, she started to cough. It started slowly, but quickly escalated. She covered her mouth with her hand, but the cough kept coming, harsh and continuous. Before she could react, she felt something warm and wet in her palm. When she pulled her hands away, she saw it. It was blood. Arome's anger dissolved instantly and was replaced with fear. Inikpi, he shouted, rushing to her side. But before he could get to her, Inikpi collapsed to the floor. Arome drove like a madman to the hospital as the image of Inikpi coughing off blood replayed in his mind over and over. By the time they arrived, she had lost consciousness, her face was pale, and her breathing was shallow. The doctors wasted no time and whisked her away on a stretcher while Arome was left in the waiting room. He was in a confused state. The anger he had felt just moments ago was now replaced by fear. What is wrong with her? How long has she been sick? And why has she not told me about it before? Arome had millions of questions in his mind that made him more baffled. Hours later, a doctor finally came out from the emergency room. His face was serious as he approached Arome. Mr. Arome, your wife is stable for now, but we found blood clots in her lung. It is a serious condition and she's going to need extensive treatment. Arome felt like the ground had been pulled out from under him. Blood clots? How? How did this happen? The doctor asked, is she on birth control pills? Arome was embarrassed at the question. He just found out only hours ago himself. Yes, she has been taking pills. The doctor hesitated for a moment before talking. It is possible that the pills she has been taking could have contributed to this, especially if she has been on them for a long time. But what concerns me more is that it seems she has been dealing with a cough for quite some time. If she had come in earlier, we might have caught it sooner. Arome lost his balance and fell into the nearest chair. The pills, the secrets, the illness, it was all too much. He had been so focused on having a child, on building a family, that he had not noticed the signs. He had not seen what was happening right in front of him. Can I see her? He asked quietly. The doctor nodded. She's sedated now, but you can sit with her. We'll have to keep her here for a while to monitor her condition. Arome nodded slowly and followed the doctor to Inikpi's room. When he entered, his heart broke all over again. He saw Inikpi laying in the bed, pale and fragile, with tubes running from her arms and a monitor beeping steadily by her side. She looked so distant and so vulnerable. He sat down beside her, and as he looked at her, the anger he had felt earlier seemed to have totally disappeared. It was insignificant. All that mattered now was that she was still here and still breathing. I don't understand, Inikpi, he whispered as tears flowed from his eyes. Why didn't you tell me? Why would you do this to yourself, to us? His mind went back to the day when they met, to the woman he had fallen in love with, the woman who seemed so innocent and strong. How had they come to this? For days, Arome remained by Inikpi's side, refusing to leave her alone. He spoke to the doctors regularly, learning everything he could about her condition. One afternoon, as he sat beside her bed, Inikpi finally woke up. She turned her head slowly and saw Arome, but her heart broke when she saw Arome's eyes, red and swollen. She felt so guilty for what she had put him through. Arome, I am so sorry, she whispered. Arome squeezed her hand. Inikpi, I don't care about the pills right now. I just want to know why. Why would you keep this sickness from me? Why risk your life? Inikpi closed her eyes as tears slipped down from her cheeks. I was scared, Arome. I didn't want to go back to that place. I didn't want to be a mother again. Not after everything. Arome's face squeezed in confusion. Again? What are you talking about? You've never been a mother before. Inikpi looked at him sorrowfully. Yes, I have. I have always been a mother in ways you can't even imagine. Arome stared at her, frightened at the way she was sounding. Inikpi, what do you mean? Inikpi smiled bitterly and took a deep breath. Her heart ached as she tried to bring up memories she had tried to bury for years. It started when I was a baby. A long time ago, in the small village of Ajokuta, a newly married couple named Bewa and Oche, they were expecting their first child. They were so much very happy because a child was the seal of a successful marriage. Months later, when Bewa gave birth to a baby girl, they named her Inikpi. Even though Oche was not totally happy because he had expected the child to be a boy. But fortunately for them, the child brought good luck because 1 month after the birth of Inikpi, Oche got a new job that would improve their lives. However, the job was outside the village and would require that Oche stayed away from his family for weeks before returning home. Bewa was filled with mixed feelings as a new mother. She did not know how she would deal with it. She had a newborn and her husband was going to be away for long. Anyway, that became their reality, and Bewa was home alone with her daughter. Oche would come back sometimes and spend few days before going out again for weeks at work. Bewa soon became used to this, and when Inikpi was just 1 year old, she became pregnant again. Inikpi was then pushed aside, and she missed out on her mother's love and care at that tender age. Unfortunately for Inikpi, being the first child and daughter meant that she would assume great responsibilities even when she was not ready for them. From 1 year of age, Inikpi would be sent by her mother to get stuffs around the house and run little errands. When her mother gave birth to the second child, it was a boy. Inikpi would be the one to get plates and spoons, and also the clothes to change the baby. And when she was 3 years old, She already knew how to change the baby's napkin and even do other matured chores around the house. Life continued that way for Inikpi. At first, she enjoyed it because it was like a new childhood experience for her. But when the children grew in number, Inikpi started to feel the burden. Whenever Oche comes home from work, he would either impregnate Bewa or remain in his room relaxing. Bewa was always pregnant, and she didn't seem to feel the burden because Inikpi was very useful. Inikpi, come here! Bewa's voice echoed through the small hut. At just 4 years old, Inikpi already knew what was expected of her whenever her mother called. Yes, Mama, she replied and ran to meet her mother. Take this, Bewa said, handing Inikpi a small bowl of water. Hold it carefully. I need to wash your brother. Inikpi did as she was told, watching as her mother skillfully cleaned the tiny baby. When she was done, Bewa handed Inikpi a small piece of cloth. Now go hang this outside to dry. Be quick about it. Inikpi nodded, taking the clothes and running outside. The sun was hot on her skin as she carefully spread the clothes over the drying line. As she stood there, she could see the other children in the village playing in the dusty streets and their laughter filling the air. She wished she could get a chance to play with them, but there was no time to play when there were chores to be done. As her age increased, Inikpi's responsibilities grew. Whenever her father was away working, which was their reality anyway, her mother relied heavily on her to help take care of her younger siblings. And by the time she was barely 5 years old, she was already accustomed to fetching water, preparing simple meals, and looking after the baby whenever her mother needed to run errands outside the home. It was when Inikpi was 5 years old that Bewa started a business. She would leave Inikpi at home with her 3 younger children, including a 9-month-old baby. Inikpi would look after them, feed them, and bathe them. In addition to these things, she would also tidy the house. She had no rest and became matured quickly. By the time she was 7 years old, Inikpi already had 4 siblings, and she took care of all of them very well with proficiency. She would strap the younger baby to her back and be on her feet all day, controlling the other ones. You could always hear Inikpi's voice ringing out, trying to caution her siblings from fighting, or from crying, or from destroying things, or from even playing rough. Unfortunately, her mother Bewa saw nothing wrong with this. While other children were playing and having childhood memories, Inikpi stayed at home, doing the duties of a stay-at-home mom and a housewife. Inikpi grew up like this. She raised her siblings. She couldn't remember ever being alone or resting without having a child with her. Even when she was sick, she would still have to manage to be there for her siblings. They were all dependent on her. Her movement was restricted, and her childhood was like a cage where she always had little ones chained to her tail. Inikpi continued this way until she got to 19 years old. By then, her siblings were all grown and old enough to take care of themselves. Oche then sent Inikpi to the city to work in a restaurant so that she could earn money to help support the family. For the first time in her life, Inikpi tasted freedom away from children and household responsibilities. One day, as she was attending to customers, she overheard some ladies having a conversation about their relationships. One of them said that her boyfriend did not like protection and she was not ready for any pregnancy wahala. The other lady laughed at her and told her to get pills to take care of that. That way, she wouldn't have to worry about a baby. Inikpi was traumatized to hear this because whenever she hears the issue of baby, she would panic. because she did not want to relive the nightmare of her childhood. She did not want to be a mother again. She did not want to go through all the stress and restrictions she had when she was younger. So, she decided to start using pills too. Prevention was better than cure. Even though she had not had any intimacy with any man yet, she started using the pill. Arome had been listening to her, and he felt goosebumps on his skin. His hairs were literally standing by now. He could not imagine what Inikpi had been through and how that had affected her. Her childhood was stolen from her, and she was forced to be a mother without any option. He was speechless and hugged her tightly as she wept. He could feel her body shaking with the force of her grief, and he realized that the woman he had married, the woman he thought he knew, had been carrying a burden so heavy that it had nearly crushed her. He had never imagined that the woman who had stood by his side for 5 years, who had smiled and laughed and pretended to be happy, had been living in fear every single day. He now knew her story, and even though he did not approve of the pill, he could not judge her. Inikpi, why didn't you tell me? Why did you hide this from me? Inikpi sniffed, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. I was afraid, Arome. I was afraid that if you knew, you would not understand, that you would want to leave me, or worse, force me to have children despite my fears. I did not want to lose you, but I couldn't also bring myself to go through that journey again. Arome felt guilty at that moment. Had he really been so blind to her pain? He had always thought of himself as a good husband, patient and loving, but now he realized that he had failed her in ways he had not even understood. He had not seen her suffering. He had not recognized the signs that something was deeply wrong with her. I am so sorry, Nikpi. I had no idea you were carrying all of this alone. I wish I had known sooner. Maybe I could have helped you. Inikpi shook her head. It is not your fault, Arome. I did not want to burden you with my past. I thought I could handle it on my own, but clearly I couldn't. Arome was still unable to control his emotions. You are my wife, Inikpi. I love you. We are supposed to face things together, no matter how difficult. I'm just sorry that I didn't see it sooner. They sat in silence for a while, but the silence was very thick and heavy. Arome did not know what the future held for them, but he knew one thing for sure. He was not going to let her go through this alone anymore. Weeks later, Inikpi's condition slowly improved. The doctors were pleased with her progress, but they made it clear that she needed to avoid stress and follow their instructions carefully. She must stop the pills permanently. Arome was by her side every step of the way, making sure she took her medication, attended her follow-up appointments, and got plenty of rest. But while her physical health was improving, Arome could see that her emotional wounds still remained, and if left untreated, it could spoil everything again. Inikpi was still haunted by the memories of her childhood, by the years of forced motherhood that had shaped her in ways she was only now beginning to understand. One evening, as they sat together in their living room, Arome brought up a topic he had been thinking about for some time. Inikpi, I have been doing some research, and I think it might be a good idea for us to see a therapist, someone who can help us walk through everything that had happened. What do you think? Inikpi looked at him surprised. Therapy? You think I need therapy? I think we both could benefit from it. You have been through so much, and I want to make sure that we are both in a good place. I don't want you to carry this burden anymore. She hesitated. I don't know, Arome. I have never really talked to anyone about all this. It feels strange opening up to a stranger. I know it is not easy, but I think it could help. And we can go together if that makes you feel more comfortable. I just want to make sure that we are both okay. Inikpi nodded slowly. Alright, if you think it will help, I will give it a try. Arume smiled. Thank you, Inikpi. I know this is not easy, but I am here for you. We will get through this together. The first few therapy sessions were difficult as Inikpi struggled to open up about the traumas of her past. But with Arume by her side, she gradually began to feel more comfortable, sharing bits and pieces of her story with the therapist. The process was slow, but it was like catharsis, allowing her to confront the pain she had buried for so long, and purging out the fear too. Arume too found the sessions helpful. He learned more about how to support Inikpi and how to be more sensitive to her needs and emotions. The therapist also encouraged them to communicate openly and honestly with each other. Over time, Inikpi began to heal. She started to see her childhood experiences in a new light, recognizing that while they had shaped her, they did not have to define her forever. She still had fears about motherhood, but with Arume's support, she began to see that it could be different this time. It did not have to be the overwhelming burden she had once known. 6 months later, Inikpi was in a much better place, both physically and emotionally. And then, one evening, Inikpi gave Arume a shocking, unexpected news. I think I am ready. I am ready to have a baby. Arume looked at her shocked. Inikpi, are you sure? You don't have to rush into anything. We can take our time. Inikpi smiled. I have been thinking about it a lot, and I have realized that while I have always been a mother, I have never done it by choice. I want to do it differently this time. I want to be able to give genuine love and care to a child, to create a different kind of childhood, one that is full of joy and freedom, not fear and responsibility. Arume's heart swelled with pride. I am so proud of you, Inikpi, and I am with you. Whatever you decide, if you are ready, then I am ready too. She nodded. But I only want one child, Arume. I think that is all I can handle. And I want to be able to give that one child everything I never had. Arume reached out and took her hand. One child is more than enough, Inikpi. As long as we are together, we can make this work. A few months later, Inikpi found out that she was pregnant. Throughout the pregnancy, Arume was intentional about Inikpi, helping her with everything from prenatal appointments to preparing the nursery. He was determined to make sure that Inikpi never felt overwhelmed or burdened, that she could experience the beauty of motherhood without any fear. When the day finally came, Inikpi gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The couple felt a sense of fulfillment. We did it, Arume. We are finally parents. As their son grew, Inikpi found herself reflecting more and more on her own childhood and some other children she had seen in the village who, like her, were forced to grow up too soon. She then realized that she wanted to do something to help, to make sure that other children did not have to experience what she had. And with Arume's encouragement, Inikpi started a foundation aimed at protecting the rights of children who were forced to take on adult responsibilities before they were ready. She named it Let the Child Breathe, a symbol of her desire to give children the freedom to be children, to grow up at their own pace, and to enjoy the innocence and joy of childhood. The foundation quickly gained traction, drawing attention from people all over the community who shared Inikpi's vision. She traveled to schools, spoke at community centers, and worked with local leaders to raise awareness about the issue. Many people could relate with her story, and parents began to understand the importance of letting their children enjoy their childhoods rather than burdening them with their own responsibilities. Inikpe's work became her passion, and it was also fulfilling. She felt as if she was finally able to give back, to make a difference in the lives of children who were in the same position she had once been. Through the foundation, she provided support and resources to families, offering education on the importance of balanced parenting. One day, as Inikpe was returning from a seminar she had held at a nearby school, she was approached by a young girl of about 12 years old who was clearly excited to see her. "Madam Inikpe, I just want to say thank you, ma. My mother came to one of your talks a few months ago. Before that, I had to take care of my younger siblings all the time because my mother was always working. But after she heard you speak, things started to change. She hired someone to help us, and now I have time to play and study. I even made some new friends. Thank you, ma, for helping me." Tears filled Inikpe's eyes as she listened to the girl's words. She knelt down to the girl's level and held her hands. "Thank you for telling me that. You are very brave. Remember, you are just a child, and it is your right to enjoy your childhood. Always hold on to that." The little girl smiled, and after a brief hug, she ran off to join her friends who were waiting nearby. Inikpe watched her go, and her heart swelled with pride and satisfaction. She knew then that the work she was doing was making a real difference, one child at a time. As her foundation grew, so did her son. Inikpe found herself experiencing the challenges and joys of motherhood in a way she had never imagined. Unlike her own childhood, where she had been overwhelmed by responsibilities, her son's life was full of love and freedom. Inikpe was determined to give her son the kind of childhood she had missed out on. A childhood filled with joy, creativity, and the freedom to explore the world at his own pace. Arome was a hands-on father and was always there to lend a helping hand or to share in the joys and struggles of raising their child. Together, they created a home that was warm, nurturing, and full of laughter. Motherhood was no longer a source of fear and anxiety for Inikpe, but a source of strength and joy. Inikpe's foundation continued to thrive, and she had become a well-respected figure in her community, having touched countless lives. She also visited her village, Ajeokuta, to spread the awareness. It was a pity that her parents were no longer alive to see what she had turned out to be. She was sure that they would be proud of her though, for not allowing their ignorance destroy her life. Her younger siblings too were proud of her and supported her in their own ways. Inikpe's foundation grew into a national movement, advocating for the rights of children across the country. Her story had inspired many, and her work had led to real change, with laws being passed to protect children from being forced into adult roles before they were ready. The foundation Let the Child Breathe was a light that guided the paths of countless families, ensuring that children could grow up in environments that nurtured their potential rather than stifling it. Thank you so much for watching the story. Please let me know your thoughts about the story, and very much importantly, please share the story out with everyone and anyone, because this is a very important awareness story. Every child deserves to enjoy their childhood. If you are yet to subscribe to this channel,